Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short track door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.
Well, for NASCAR, it's California, here we come, but not before we have our old-fashioned little dust-up in Bristol. Hi, everybody. Joe Williams coming up next on Pit Pass. We'll talk about Bristol, California, and the area's best little short track, Highland Rim. All that with Larry Woody and more coming up next.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with Larry Woody. And Larry, it's California, here we come. But first, we got to talk about the great little track up in East Tennessee, Bristol Motor Speedway. Another good race, apparently. I mean, Casey Kane. Casey who? Who's Casey Kane?
Casey Kane. Tough little guy from the great Northwest, good little driver, sharp driver.
Has had some struggles the past couple of years.
He has. Got with a good team this year, though, and I think, or last year actually, I think he's kind of finding his stride. I think he's one of the real up-and-comers. He'll be a superstar before he's through.
Well, I don't think it's dangerous.
Already one of the superstars, but I mean, he'll be big eventually.
Couple of notes out of Bristol. Casey Kane wins the race. Larry, a couple things that hit me over the weekend. One, Kurt Busch and his team comes in fourth. That may be the best finish for Furniture Row.
One thing about Kurt Busch, Joe, he can, and we saw this last year when he drove some for James Finch. Kurt is so talented, he can take a middle-of-the-pack car and run up front in it. You know, it's not just coincidence. As I say, he did it race after race last year with James Finch. Nothing against James in his operation, but he's not a top of the flight team operation. He doesn't have the finances, but Kurt would take Finch's car, run up front. Now he's taking another second, maybe even third-rate car and putting it up front. That's a tribute to Kyle Busch's driving ability.
Kurt
Busch.
But you know, by the same token, Kurt Busch can take a top-notch race car driver and let his personality make him a nothing. So.
Yeah, he can take a top-flight ride and
destroy it. Yeah, it's hopefully. But you know what? Give him credit. So far, I think he's done better.
Yep.
Hopefully this time he truly has learned some things.
Maybe those anger management lessons are starting to kick in.
Yeah, seem to be helping his little brother son, who's doing better.
Both Bushes, tremendously talented, but sometimes their tantrums get the best of them.
In the middle of all this, I think Kyle was in the top group for a while, and you had, obviously blistered. I mean, we're talking sub 14 seconds for a qualifying lap. Had it not been for a speeding penalty on pit road, he might have actually won the race, because when it started, he checked out on him.
Yeah,
and just took off. Junior wound up sixth, I think. We'll talk in a little bit about how the point standings are shaking out, because you got some guys with pretty good names who had really good starts to the 13 season. But it wouldn't be Bristol unless there was a little Rubbin, because Rubbin is racing.
Sure.
And
fans love it.
And fans love it.
Sure.
And late in the race, a little Rubbin between former teammates, Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, sent Logano around and around. And when it was over, I mean, 23rd and 27th, I think is where they both finished. It's not like this was really for a top position. And when it was done, Joey Logano was not happy, and the kid even went to Hamlin's car to tell him what he thought.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be Bristol if you didn't have a little driver's spat after it's over. That's part of it. It's supposed to be a rough, tough track, and the emotions are supposed to boil over a little, and then they go over and they tell each other what they think about them and their cars and their grandmothers. And then by next week, when we get to California this weekend, they'll be best buds again. But that's all part of Bristol. That used to be the charm of Bristol. Maybe it's coming back a little.
Now, the other side of that story is Denny Hamlin, of course, said very little about this. Probably did not want to see a $50,000 fine.
He said this is the greatest car in the history of
right.
stock car racing, and he certainly hopes NASCAR keeps doing exactly what it's been doing. That it's, if you look at a dictionary beside perfection, you'll see one of NASCAR's cup cars. No, Denny probably did the prudent thing, Joe, when he backed down. You know, he's kind of bucking the system. You know, when NASCAR smacked him with a $25 fine for daring to say that his car didn't run well, which drivers have said historically when they don't win a race, they say their car didn't run well. But this is particularly sensitive, Joe, because NASCAR, as everybody knows, has invested so much in this G6 car, prodded along by the manufacturers. Yeah. And, you know, this is NASCAR's baby, and they didn't like to be told by Denny Hamlin that they have an ugly baby. Even if, you know, as we know, if your baby may be so ugly as you got to put a pork chop around his neck to get the dog to play with him, but you still don't want to be told your baby's ugly, even though everybody knows it's ugly. So Denny made the mistake of telling NASCAR that its baby wasn't very attractive and got smacked. Having said all that, Denny backed down, and probably, like you said before we went on, Denny probably didn't pay that $25,000 fine. Probably team owner Joe Gibbs or Toyota shelled it out for him and just said, Denny, quieten down, let it blow over, and let's go, you know, get on with the season.
2 points to this. One, it actually came out of the team winnings, which I'm sure Toyota or Gibbs put back in it, because when it comes out of the team winnings, it starts to affect everybody on the team who may get you know, the pit crew, et cetera, who may get a small portion based on the winnings. And secondly, you know, Mr. Hammond had a good point I read earlier this week when he said it's kind of hard to believe Denny would talk about how bad the car was or that it couldn't pass when he came from the rear of the field and passed everybody all the way back to the front.
Yeah, again, I think Denny was just frustrated. As I say, every driver, Joe, who doesn't win is frustrated.
Sure.
And if you catch them in the heated aftermath of the race when they're frustrated, sometimes they say things that they probably wouldn't say otherwise. Having said that, they said that historically. You know, I've never seen a runner-up driver who was happy that he got beat. And that's kind of all Denny said. Somebody asked him about the car, and he said, I didn't think it performed particularly well in the clutch down the stretch run, and I thought NASCAR overreacted. I guess if there's anything I took away from this, Joe, it's how some of the TV guys kind of buckled under it and kowtowed to NASCAR, and particularly our buddy Darrell Walter. You know, Darrell used to be the resident rebel of the sport, and when I asked Darrell what he thought about it, he thought, you know, NASCAR was right, that they should have whacked Denny for criticizing him, and nobody's criticized NASCAR, as you know, more than Darrell Walter over the years. And I thought it was looked kind of bad, I thought, for some of these guys to be towing that company line so shamelessly.
You know, I guess I think back, Larry, to days gone by. In this situation, my perception, my memory is that if something like that happened, and Darrell's been in a couple of these, you know, we call it going to the NASCAR trailer. In the old days, you went to Bill France Jr.'s office. And when Bill got done with you, you pretty well knew you didn't want to do this again. A little bit different now with this public money fine, and yeah, I mean that's the double-edged sword here is, Denny, you came from the back to the front before you complained about the car, but secondly, the overreaction, I think, and coming on the heels of the overreaction to the situation at Daytona, and what I mean by overreaction at Daytona, please do not misunderstand. I thought they handled the physical part of it extremely well. They had a great plan in place. They got the injured fans out of there. They got the track repaired. But it was their media folks trying to control what went in and out of there is where they overreacted. And to an extent, they did the same thing here.
Yeah, and again, Joe, my point is not whether Denny was correct or incorrect about whining about his car. I just think a driver has a right to whine if he wants to whine. And I don't think NASCAR should be slapping duct tape over their mouths and saying telling them what they can say and can't say. And particularly after a couple of years ago, remember NASCAR made such a big deal about they don't want these cardboard cutouts anymore. They want these plastic drivers. They want real people out there showing real emotions, and the boys, part of the boys have at it philosophy. And then somebody speaks their mind, and NASCAR gets all bent out of shape and in effect muzzles them, penalizes Denny for saying something I thought fairly bland and routine. I thought that was what I took out of it.
Hey, at least they're not having to get him out of jail. It's not like some other sports, really, you know.
In the good old days.
Yeah, well, even, yeah. A couple of other notes for you. Where'd Danica finish?
Danica who?
Okay.
I wrote it down, so I had to look it up somewhere. She was way down toward the bottom.
28th.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's her
Struggling. She's struggling.
third bad race after making such a splash at Daytona, right out of the box. We said then, Joe, after Daytona, remember, said, don't get too excited. This is one race in a long season. Let's not award her the championship yet. As good as she looked at Daytona, sitting on the pole, just ran a tremendous race, and then the next 3 weeks she's falling flat on her face. Looks like driving Miss Daisy out there. Yeah. Again, having said that, we're 4 races into it now, with still a lot of racing to go. So it's too early to write down a off. She may turn this thing around, but man, she's really gone from sky high to rock bottom these last 3 weeks.
But Larry, I think they kind of expected that, understanding her experience on some of these small and intermediate tracks. Most of the open wheel stuff she had done was on the bigger tracks. I think California is kind of the turning point this weekend. It's a big, wide open 2 mile. It's just like Michigan. She's raced a lot at Michigan. We'll find out then, with that big, wide open racetrack. One other note before we close the segment. Kyle Busch wins the nationwide race. That's not the story. Where everybody else finished is not the story, except for the guy who finished second, a young man by the name of Kyle Larson, who best known for leaving his engine in the grandstands at Daytona, but better known probably before that for knocking everybody out of the way so he could win races early in the week at Daytona and down in the Florida area. Found it interesting. And I don't know if, Larry, he learned that's not the good thing to do, or if he sat back there and said, I ain't hitting Kyle Busch. But he made a run, but he never hit him.
You have to temper enthusiasm with wisdom. So maybe had a little of both. I like to see young guys, young hungry guys who are trying to get their foot in this tough door and make a living in the sport, make a mark in the sport. I don't have any problem with them beating and banging and doing what they got to do to get up front. Having said that, he probably was a little bit
overly aggressive.
And last week, then, as you say, maybe the wisdom is a little.
Well, with experience comes wisdom. Maybe he's experienced enough.
Little discretion, as they say.
Sometimes discretion is a better part of valor.
Right.
All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about California that's coming up and a couple of other things. Don't forget, too, to go visit our friends at Nissan of Rivergate. Now, the guys up there can take care of you whether you're looking for a new Nissan or a pre-owned Nissan, or pre-owned anything else. If you want it, they can find it for you. Trey, the guys are awful good at that. So go by and see them. They're on Gallatin Road, just south of Rivergate Mall, about a mile. You can't miss it. And grab some popcorn out front, too. Have a bag for me. We'll be back with more coming up next on Pit Pass.